Hey, it's Torch from Rock and a Hard Place at rockyoushow.com. I had the pleasure of speaking with Joel Ellis, the frontman for Cats and Boots and Heavy Bones. You can check him out at joelellismusic.com. We have some of the interview we did here with Joel talking about the origins of Cats and Boots, and they only put out one record, but in my opinion, one of the more interesting albums of the 80s. Here's Joel Ellis of Cats and Boots on Rock and a Hard Place.
Cats and Boots was never formed out of any preconception to be anything. You know, I just wanted to get away from Hollywood. I had just broken my leg on stage in front of 30,000 people, and I was just seeing too much. My guitar player was on heroin and just everything, you know. And a Japanese guy comes along and he's playing, he plugs in his Les Paul straight into a Marshall stack, no pedals, no nothing, and cranks it up and blows me away with his tone. In the middle of the 80s, when everybody had like these huge pedal boards and all these Charvel guitars and they were all shredding, and you're talking about a kid who busted out of the Rust Belt of rock and roll Cleveland, you know, listening to 60s, 70s artists, Zeppelin and, you know, Floyd and everybody, Aerosmith, Joe Perry. I mean, it was like, I heard him plug into that Les Paul. It was like, oh, I could breathe. Like, it can't get any louder. Turn it louder. Can it go louder? No, but I can put another amp on top. Okay, do that. So that's what we did. And that's really the beautiful thing about Cats and Boots, and probably the most heartbreaking thing now in hindsight, you know, looking back on the band, is that we had full creative control. What ended up getting recorded and released was all us. The Kicked and Clawed record had two producers that knew and understood that. We had a number one album in Japan. We had a number one record selling 50,000 copies just from magazine orders only. And our shows were just, they would close down sections of Tokyo. We weren't allowed to play there after a while because when we went back to play in Tokyo, we had to change. We would advertise one of the name, like the Shotgun Sallies are playing at Magura, you know, and then the streets would flood with kids and shut down. We literally got kicked out of Japan with pockets full of, you know, yen. And I remember calling Frank Zappa. We were in Roppongi getting hammered. I was out partying with, everybody. Actually, Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers was playing drums for Cooney, who was opening for us in Japan. He wasn't in the Peppers yet. And we were out tearing it up in Roppongi, Japan. And all these record companies would disguise themselves as like really hot geishas or whatever. You're on this 120th floor of some skyscraper and you're in a room and they're trying to get you to sign papers while you're down in sake and God knows what else. So I grabbed the phone. I said, now's the time. I called, and I called Frank, and it was like afternoon. I called the Zappa house and I said, what do? I said, the record companies are throwing literally piles of cash at us and the geishas and all this other stuff and whatever's going on, and we're hanging out. And Frank just says, Joel, we should all have such problems. He says, enjoy everything they've got to give you. He said, and don't sign a thing, and I'll have you a deal before your plane hits U.S. soil. And that's what happened.
Oh, that's amazing.
Frank Zappa made a phone call for us. You know, I was friends with Dweezil and the whole family, and by the time we got back to the States, we had Frank's business manager, Ira Herzog, in New York. The deals were going. Peter Lopez, my lawyer, had the contract drafted. They were dancing for joy. But looking back in hindsight now, it was like we really did have the key to the city. We had the key to the planet more than what other bands had, because we created our own success. Mm-hmm. And we just went out and we had fun, and our concerts were fun, and the records sold because they were fun, and it was all based on fun, and it wasn't anything premeditated or calculated. It was just to be yourself. And we did that. Like, we challenged each other, embarrassed ourselves on stage sometimes, you know. It was cool. But when I got back to the States, we went to a party for EMI Records, and I saw Chad there at the roof. I'm like, dude, I'm like, it's Roppongi. He's like, yo, man, what's up? I go, what are you doing here? He goes, I'm with these guys now. And he points to Anthony and Flea and that, you know, like, hey, Joel. And I'm just like, oh, there you go. So
that's crazy, man.
That was a little slice of trivia for you.
Joel Ellis of Cats and Boots and Heavy Bones. Find everything he's been up to at joelellismusic.com. And you can find more about us, Rock and a Hard Place, at rockyoushow.com.